this technically. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I had just remembered I needed to
No
start
worries.
recording it. Okay.
Technically in Norwalk, but it's a really small city, which is southeast of LA. So it's always easier to just say LA. I'm actually dialing from my office I'm at work. Well, I'm not at work anymore, but I'm in the work building. So it was just easier to do it from here.
Okay.
What else? Oh, I met Julia, I want to say 2013 or 2015. I'm not sure. Around there. It's been a while, but we met, I think, at the, I don't know if it's pronounced KELP or CLP
Yeah,
camp.
Kelp.
Yeah, so it was basically like alternative spring break. I was at UCI and I went there to Catalina, and it was really fun because it was my first time ever really being like in the outdoors. Like we weren't camping, but we were technically like in these rustic cabins, and we got to do a lot of hiking. My first hike ever was with Julia, so it was a fun memory. And my favorite book I would say is A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett, I think. So
Hoskins, A Little
something
Princess.
else, yeah. A Little Princess by Frances. I don't know the middle name, but then Burnett, or I think Burnett's the last name.
And that was made into a movie, right? A Little Princess.
It was, yes.
Because I loved that movie, but I don't think I've ever read the book.
I love the book a lot more. You know, there's always a lot more detail in it, but I think I read that book when I was in middle school, and it's still one of my favorites.
Okay.
Wow.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm so glad you remember that hike, Daniela. That was such an amazing day for so many people. It was hiking on Catalina Island is treacherous. It is not fun at all. And the fact that that was your very first hike is amazing. Like, oh my gosh. The view at the top, it was so worth it. And then coming down, and I think we immediately ate after that. It was like, yes.
I know. I think it was supposed to be a 3-hour hike. It took me 5 hours.
Hey, it
was so fun.
We all made it. We all did it. Oh, where's the meeting passcode? Natalie's asking me what the meeting passcode is. Hold on.
I don't think I was required.
I don't think it's required either. I don't think.
Yeah, mine just went right through.
But let me look. Okay. All right. So while I'm doing that, let's move on to the next person. Oh, Sammy. Hi, Sammy. Hi, this is Sammy. Sammy, right now we're just going around and introducing ourselves, and we're saying our names, where we're dialing in from / where we live, how you know me, and your favorite book. So I'm going to go to Heather next, so you can think about what you're going to say for that. So Heather, take it away.
All right. So I'm Heather. I'm calling from Australia. I've been living here 2 years this go around because I'm half Australian, so I kind of come and go as I please. I met Julia when we were at, we worked at Sheridan Mountain Campus together. So an outdoor ed center. I don't know how many years. I was there for
1 season. Oh,
you were there for 1 season.
Yes, 1 season.
That's
it. And then Morgan didn't.
We got so close.
Morgan didn't want me to come back, or something like the paperwork didn't work out. Yeah, I wanted to come back, and then something happened, and I didn't come back the next season. And I was like, boo, that's unfortunate.
1 season, yeah, we got really close just for being there 1 season. I was there for almost 2 years. As for favorite book, I quickly looked up this. I'm so bad with names. I don't have a favorite book, but I have a favorite author. And her name's Kate Morton, and she is actually from Queensland, where I'm living. And all of her books are kind of the same kind of setup, where it's like, you're finding out about these characters, but there's always some sort of secret, and it's unraveling the secret, and then you find it out at the end. Like, you think one thing about the characters and then something else. You find out their history at the end. So instead of a favorite book, I'm going to say Kate Morton, and I love every single one of her books.
Okay. Kate Morton. I don't think I've
Taking
ever
notes of
heard of that name before.
I hadn't either until I moved here, and I actually was living at a like a bookstore, for lack of better terminology, and they were like, "Here, this is a local author," and I haven't been able to put down her books, so I own like 4 or 5 of them.
Awesome. Okay, 2 things, Heather. One, you definitely have more of an Australian accent now. I can hear it. It's
The lilt.
awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
And 2, have you read anything by Leanne Moriarty? Because she's also Australian.
I've heard
Hey,
that
writing
name.
it down.
I read The Husband's Secret. It was like a typical sort of mystery thriller book. I am Natalie.
Hi. Sorry, I just got out of the shower. I'm wearing a
It's
turban.
okay. You look great. You look great.
everyone.
And yeah, so I think a lot of her books take place in Australia, and she has a ton of books. I see so many of her books all over the place. I've only read The Husband's Secret. I don't remember too much about it other than the mic drop was kind of crazy. But yeah, that's all right. Kate Morton.
Written her down,
Yeah.
adding her to my list.
Okay, great. Thank you, Heather. Let's move on to Sammy because she was the next one to dial in. For Sarah and Natalie, first of all, hi, nice to see you. Second of all, we're just doing introductions right now since we're all dialing in from different places. Some of you know each other, you 3, you know each other. But you know, we want to make sure that we all know what's going on and who's who. So we're doing introductions. Just say your name, where you are living / where you're dialing in from, how you know me, and what is your favorite book. So take it away, Sammy.
Let's see. I'm Sammy Lenofsky. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me well, right? Okay. Okay. I live in Purcellville, Virginia. And I know Julia from, I think, middle school. I think we go back to middle school. No, not middle school. So we go back to Valley.
Yes, yeah.
The
I
starting
didn't,
Valley.
yeah, at Valley, at track. I did not move to Percival until 9th grade. So,
Okay.
so yeah, but we met at Valley
Track and field.
and
Yeah.
track and field. Yeah.
So then maybe we actually go back a little longer, but it's not. I think my recent favorite book is I'll Go First. Oh my gosh, I just forgot it.
You sent it in an email to me.
Yeah.
I'll go first. Something, something, something.
Share. I'll go first. You share your story, and I'll go first, or something like that. It's really good book. It's I really enjoyed reading it.
Oh, here it is. It's called Share Your Stuff, I'll Go First
Yeah,
by Laura Tremaine.
yeah, that's it.
And you
I was
said
Googling it too.
it's a little bit of like a journal.
Yeah, And then-
You can
and-
journal during it, right?
right,
You can write stuff down.
right.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a very interesting concept. I'd like to look
Yeah.
into that actually.
Yeah.
Because I've kind of stopped journaling this last year. I mean, my mother, she's here. She knows that I have a pile of unfinished diaries that I've started writing in, and then either another Scholastic book fair happened and I bought another diary,
Yeah.
or I got another
Same.
notebook. So I feel like over the course of time, if you were to take all of that and put it into chronological order, you would eventually get like my life story just over the course of thousands of notebooks.
Yeah, that's kind of like me. I started here and there, but a few pages. I haven't did that much of journaling.
Yeah.
After reading that book, I wanted to journal. It's really good.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know. Thank you, Sammy. All right, let's move on to the next person who dialed in, which was Sarah Kirby. Do you know the prompts, or do you want me to remind you what you got to do?
Name, where I live, how I know you, and favorite book.
That's it.
Okay. So I'm Sarah. I live in Richmond, but I'm from the DC area. So Julia and I went to high school together. And I loved House in the Cerulean Sea.
By TJ Klein.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
then
heard that.
recently I just pulled it up because I'm also into like Madeline Miller's like Circe and
Mhm.
Achilles, stuff like that. So I got KK.
Ooh.
It's really good. It's but Vaishnavi Patel. So it's like a Hindu like goddess story that's like fan fiction type of like that.
Okay.
It's good. I don't, like having a little bit of background of like the Greek gods and goddesses like makes it a little more, you have some background knowledge, but this, she had to have like a whole little, this is the background of what you need to know before you can enjoy this story. But it was a good story standalone by itself. But I imagine having known, more of like the history of that genre would make it maybe more interesting too.
What's that one?
It's called, it's Kaikei. I pronounce it like KK.
KK, yeah. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce that. Kai.
Yeah.
Kai.
But it's good. I would recommend it.
Sweet.
What was the title of your favorite book? I wanted to.
A House in the Cerulean Sea.
The Cerulean Sea. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
By
you.
TJ Klein. I haven't read it, but I see it all the time on Bookstagram.
Yeah.
Pretty
It's very
fun.
unique and it's just lovely to read.
Yeah, that's the kind
I
of.
love
things that
the
get
name
me.
of the title. It's
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful cover. Yeah, those really get me,
And I think it's a
Mhm.
series
Yeah.
too. So there's more than just one book in that series, I believe. Did you know that, Sarah? There's more.
I didn't.
Yeah. I think it's the same characters. Maybe it's not, but there's definitely several books by TJ Klein that kind of followed that. When I look at the cover, I'm like, okay, that's definitely a take on House in the Cerulean Sea. So I don't know. Looking
Cool.
good. Okay, thank you, Sarah. And last but not least, we have Natalie, fresh out of Zumba class.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit late. I just ate dinner and took a shower, and I'm still in my Turby twist.
You look amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Natalie. I live in New York City. I know Julia, Sammy, and Sarah from high school. I am so happy I convinced Julia to start a book club. Her Instagram is the best, and I've just been like reading like all of her recommendations back like what was like a year ago when you like read Dave Grohl's book,
Oh my God.
which that was such a good book. I would definitely recommend reading his memoir if you have not read that already. And another recent book I really enjoyed is called The Dolphin House by Audrey Schulman. If you're interested, I can add it to the chat too. But it's really cool. It's actually based off of a true story in St. Thomas about back in like the 60s, they were doing experiments on dolphins, and a partially deaf woman got involved and started working with the dolphins. And I just love animals and reading books about animals. It was really cute.
Yeah, you had told me about that book a few weeks ago, and I wrote it down, and I'm on the lookout for it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so thank you, Julia, for starting this wonderful book club.
I owe it all to Natalie, man. Don't be thanking me, thank Natalie. She just reached out to me one day and she said, why don't you do this? And I was like, yeah, I guess. I don't know. I was in a book club, but I never got to participate in it. It was such a short-lived thing. I asked somebody on my like local Facebook page. I was like, can I be a part of anyone's book club? I read so many books, and I'm like dying to get some of these
talk about
thoughts
it.
and feelings
Yeah.
out. And so I signed up for one. It was online like this one. And I wasn't able to pick up the first book. I don't know why. I just didn't have time, didn't have whatever. And then by the time the second book came around, the host said, oh, I can't do this anymore. Bye. I never heard from them again. So yeah, I think this hopefully will be a little bit longer lasting. Okay, we have one more person, and that's my mom. She is also dialed in. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Mom.
Hi, I'm Debbie and Julia's mom. I've known her since formally since June 28th, 1988. But I guess it started 9 months before that. But yeah, she said that, well, I've been trying to read more and I haven't been too successful. And I know Julia did, I was reading through her book reviews that she had on Instagram or something. And I thought, gee, she sort of has a knack with, you know, summarizing different books and, you know, bringing a lot of personality to it. And then she told me about this little book club that Natalie prompted her to start up, and would I like to join? I said, yeah, that would probably be a good way to get me to read more books. So I was happy to start with Joy Luck Club because I actually had read that many years ago, but reading it again, it's like I never ever read it. It's all fresh to me again. And my favorite book is, I think probably, it's more of a, probably a book that you would find maybe in the drugstore, but it's actually pretty good. And it's called The Prince of Tides.
Oh, well,
Yeah, by Pat Conroy. It was made into a movie, but the book is so much more than the movie, if you can imagine. Crazy scenes. It's a southern novel, kind of like Forrest Gump, you know, shrimping and the crazy businesses that the Southerners get involved in. The coastal, I think maybe South Carolina. I'm not sure exactly which state it takes place, but it's a coastal Southern story, and the secrets that the family, this very proper sort of family holds, trying to hold it all together, and then the fallout for some of the children that are involved in an abusive family, and how they kind of try to cleanse themselves. But so I'm grateful to be with everybody. It looks good. Looks like a good group.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Prince of Tides, man. I have not read that book, but it is a lot of people's favorite book.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's a lot of people's favorite book and movie, for what it's worth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was kind of cheesy the way they put Barbra Streisand in it. That was a weird pick, but the other character is pretty good, and his sister, you know, he has this twin sister that she ends up in a real depression and with mental illness, and he's trying to dig himself out of it. I didn't realize that it was like a lot of people's favorite book. Wow. I just remember there's a tiger scene in it that involves the family with a tiger in a chapter setting. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so it's good to be with everybody.
Yeah. Prince of Tides.
Prince of Tides.
Okay, great. I guess I'll go since I still need to introduce myself. I'm Julia, as you all know. I currently am dialing in from Centerville, Virginia, which is where I live with my husband. My favorite book is The Monkey Wrench Gang by Edward Abbey. I have the book here. It is a book about sort of Greenpeace type activists, very sort of like eco-terrorism in a sense. So it's a little bit out there. It's a little bit of an outlier book. Edward Abbey himself, he wrote another book, a really famous book called Desert Solitaire, which was a memoir about his time as a park ranger out in Arches National Park in Utah. And that was a really good book. That's probably his most famous work, is his work as sort of a very isolated park ranger. And he gets a little bit disenfranchised by the federal government and how they're taking care of the land, and the people who are misusing the land to their own greedy benefit, that kind of thing. So I think that's probably where the idea behind Monkey Wrench Gang came out, sort of like a group of people who came together to kind of just mess up some stuff for instead of saying something else. It's a really, really crazy book. It's a crazy book. I loved it. I read it and I was laughing almost the entire time. It's just like such an outlandish story. And that's pretty much it. I have a lot of favorite books, but that one kind of stands out above the rest for me. And I'm hoping I can read it again in the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. Okay. Thank you everyone for your introductions. This is awesome. This is a really good turnout. I was honestly in my head, I was thinking, I don't know, 3, 4 people. And we have a lot of people who couldn't be here. Like I said, there are people from Hawaii, Alaska, and this is just an inconvenient time for them. Hopefully in the future, they'll be able to find a time to dial in, but for now, this is great. I'm very happy. Okay, so the Joy Luck Club, let's get into it, shall we? I kind of don't really know where to start, other than I wrote down a bunch of stuff. Here's my notebook, another notebook. This one is devoted to all of my book club books. I took a lot of notes and I tabbed the crap out of this book. There's a lot of tabs. Actually, there's not too many tabs. There's 16 tabs, which I think is pretty appropriate given that there's 16 chapters in this book. There's not one for every chapter, but it ended up being 16 tabs, which I thought was, I don't know, kind of a nice little coinky dink. So let's go ahead, and I guess I'll just start off with a general question, and then we can kind of dial it back from there and see if we want to hone in on something in particular. Let's see, which question do I want to start with? I guess we'll just start off with what was everyone's favorite part of the book, because that's such a big question to ask. And then from there, we can sort of hone in on specific chapters and specific stories with these mother-daughters, and just kind of like flesh out, because there's so many stories in this book, and it's honestly, for me, it was like kind of hard to keep track of. I had to keep going back and forth and being like, wait, who was this? Who is the mom, and what was her story, and how is it reflecting in the daughter's story? What are the connections to be made here? So yeah, just what was your favorite part of the book? What is the part that like stands out the most for you? Is there anybody who knows right off the bat what their favorite part was?
I can
don't know
start.
about-
Sorry.
I'll have
Go ahead.
Danielle go first.
No worries. I really like the part where she talks about going to her mom's friend's house after the funeral and basically taking her mom's place at the table.
At the very beginning, right?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much the beginning. I think there was a line where she said she still felt like a child. And that kind of resonated. At times I still feel like a small child, but you're not. So I found that to be my favorite part, where she's describing what the house was like when they were all little kids and she was supposed to take care of them as one of the oldest, like grandkids. When we had family togethers, I would always kind of have to be looking out for my little cousins, things like that. I think that part, that description, I really related to. So it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it was kind of sad that at no point during this book did you actually hear Soyeon's voice, right? It was always June. It was always June's voice because Soyeon is dead, right? So I thought that was really interesting that instead of hearing from Soyeon herself, you were hearing her stories through June. And again, with the overall theme of communication and passing down cultures and beliefs and all of these things, there are probably things within that chapter that maybe Soyeon herself would have said a little bit differently, or you know, or said, no, wait, that's not how it happened at all. You're hearing it from June's perspective. And that was like that was really sad, you know. It was like, oh, you're starting off this book with the daughter right off the bat, even though the rest of the chapters, at least in the first part and the last 4 parts, are from the mother's perspective. So that was kind of sad, but you still know Soyeon's story, and you know the super, you know, the hardship that she had gone through while she was living in China. So yeah, I liked that part too. She just starts right off the bat, like, I took my mom's table, or I took my mom's spot at the mahjong table. Yeah.
And I think she recounts her mom one time telling her, how can you be me if you don't even know me? Something along those lines. So it's like really shocking to think of that, right? Like the people that are closest to you, your parents, you may not even fully know them. I know I didn't experience that with my mom, but with my grandma, we grew up together, obviously. Thankfully, she's still here. But now that I'm older, I actually am getting to know her. I'll ask her questions like what she was like when she was my age, what her youth was like. And these are things I never knew until like this year, that I talked to her more and get to find out, oh, she had a whole life before she decided to start a family.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's awesome to hear. And then, well, I know you haven't gotten this far in the book, Daniela. Has anyone also not finished the book? Raise your hand if you have not finished the book. Okay, so Mom and Sarah, that's cool. That's cool. We were telling Daniela earlier that there's really no spoiler to this book. It's really not any sort of like big, I always call it like a mic drop moment where it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, the big twist, the big plot reveal or whatever. It's not the case with this particular book, but is Dad playing the piano?
No, do you hear something?
No, I thought maybe Dad was playing the piano.
No, he's not playing the piano.
Okay, all right.
I'm gonna get up and go get something.
Okay, all right. Well, the very last chapter, it goes back to June's story, and there's a quote that she says, you know, you're always going to be Chinese, no matter where you were born, no matter how you were raised, you're always going to be Chinese. And it says it is in your blood. And it's kind of funny because, yeah, at the beginning of the book, Soyeon is saying, you don't know me, you don't know who I am, you don't know what I've been through. And then at the end, it's more of like, well, this is who you are. And I'm telling you that to you, and you're going to find out for yourself by, she goes to China. That's what she does. She goes to China to see, you know, what it's like, what is China really like. So I really liked that part of the story too, Daniela. Okay, let's move on. Heather, you had something you wanted to say.
Well, it's funny that you said there's no like mic drop. I felt like the ending was, and the part I want to talk about is the ending, but I don't know that I want to say everything, so I'll keep it somewhat vague. But the part that was my favorite was, I'm basically going to be giving it away no matter if I keep it vague or not, but I'll try to keep it vague. But when certain people meet other certain people who they've never met before, and they see a familial resemblance, and it's just like so encouraging and warm. That was, and I think it's literally like the second, I'm looking at it because I finished it last night, so I think it was like the second to last page, or even no, even the last page.
Yeah, I think it's on the last page.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I I think that resonated with me, having not met my Australian family until I moved here. And just seeing them, and you know, I was 21, I think, when I first met them, and seeing people I'd never met, but like seeing them and going, holy, you know, that's family. Holy cow, like that. And so I think that resonated with me, but it was also like, you wonder about people who are adopted or who have half siblings, and that meeting can go one of two ways, right? Like that meeting can be, I spent my whole life either not knowing about you or hating you because of circumstance, or this, where it's like so exciting because there's been that hope your whole life. And so I think that was my favorite part. Specific part. And then on a broad stroke, my favorite thing is like, it felt like every chapter, it was like, here's this horrible hardship or uncomfortable hardship, but I found my voice in it. Like, oh, I felt like so many chapters, it was like, I found my voice. That's when I learned to roar. That's when you know, it's very much like, I'm a woman, I've gone through these horrible things, and I'm still here to, like, you know, fight the good fight and come into my own voice.
Yeah, I agree. Especially the first 4 chapters. I mean, every single chapter you're like, oh my gosh, what terrible stuff happened to all of these women so long ago, and in such a sort of a very foreign place. Obviously, you know, it seems like how could some of those things possibly happen? What was the woman who, see, this is what happens. I think, the Red Candle with Lindo John, which was the 3rd chapter, technically. Her life was already set out for her when she was 2, and her soon-to-be husband was 1 year old. I mean,
Yeah.
2. And then she left her family when she was 12. She was asked to bear children at 16. And you know, that is a crazy sort of circumstance. And obviously that chapter was a crazy chapter. That was maybe one of my favorite chapters, because, you know, she just had such a positive outlook on the situation. It was such a dire situation. She was not in love with her husband, but she grew to love him in a really sort of strange, backhanded way. And you know,
him like a brother.
yeah, almost like, oh, you poor thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how she kind of got through such a hardship, because at the beginning of the chapter, her parents said, you must bring honor and honor and what is it? Honor is the big word here. Obey your family. That's what it was. Obey your family and do not disgrace us. And she did that, and she did it in a really clever way too. I mean, really clever. So I really like that chapter a lot. It wasn't my favorite chapter, but I really did like that chapter. Yeah, that I liked what you said, Heather.
I think in that chapter too, there was a part where they told her she was too balanced to have children. Like she had all of the elements. I just thought that was funny, because sometimes I feel like in society, you know, if you don't have children, there's like maybe something wrong or something missing, right? Like that's kind of like the stereotype. But I like that they said like she's just perfectly balanced. She has too much of everything. So they took away all her gold or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. That gold was a big theme in that particular chapter. She held on to that gold for so long.
Gold was like a big theme in like all of in the whole book. Gold becomes theme throughout the book, I think. Because gold is seen as pure when it comes out as a 24 karat gold that I guess in that one, because she uses 24 karat gold as her bracelets,
Mhm.
right? Is that the one?
Yes, yeah,
She
that's the
uses that
one.
too.
And to have anything less than 24 karat
4
would
yards.
be, yeah,
Is
wouldn't
too
be
cheap.
acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah, and she uses the story as the soldier, a soldier coming to, sorry, I wanted to mention like my favorite part. As Heather was saying it, I too felt the powerfulness of each story. There was something about each time, like you feel this each time you read this horrible tragedies going through them, and then you just feel this empowerment, and you can relate to it too. And I could relate to the book in a lot of ways, in little ways. A lot of things that I went through in India. And it just, I thought it gave hope.
Mhm.
That was my big come through. It was that they just gave me hope.
Yeah, joy and luck. That was
Yeah.
that was what they had to hold on to, especially Soyeon when she created the Joy Luck Club. I mean,
Yeah.
that was another sort of aspect that really stuck with me. And let's see, it was the first tab that I wrote. It was, this idea that things were so bad and they were seeing such terrible stuff, but in the midst of all of that, they were creating a world within that world that was full of joy and full of hope, and was a way for everyone to come together and just celebrate being with each other. Soyeon, let me just read I'll just read it. We'll just read it. How about that? So everyone has different pages because everyone has different editions. This is the first chapter. And this was when they were talking about, this was when Soyeon was talking to June about creating the Joy Luck Club and why it was getting maybe some backlash from other people who couldn't understand why they were doing this. It's not that we have had no heart or eyes for pain. We were all afraid. We all had our miseries, but to despair was to wish back for something already lost or to prolong what was already unbearable. How much can you wish for a favorite warm coat that hangs in the closet of a house that burned down with your mother and father inside of it? How long can you see in your mind arms and legs hanging from telephone wires and starving dogs running down the streets with half-chewed hands dangling from their jaws? What was worse, we asked among ourselves, to sit and wait for our own deaths with proper somber faces, or to choose our own happiness? And I mean, that's like such a powerful,
Yeah.
that was such a powerful paragraph. And then it keeps going. So we decided to hold parties and pretend each week had become the new year. Each week we would forget past wrongs done to us. We weren't allowed to think a bad thought. We feasted, we laughed, we played games, lost and won. We told the best stories, and each week we could hope to be lucky. That hope was our only joy, and that's how we came to call our little parties Joy Luck. So I love that. And I think that still happens today. There are still instances where you can't be anything other than trying to make the most out of a really bad situation. And there are people who try to perhaps, talk down to you and say, well, things are so bad. How can you possibly be happy? How can you possibly find any joy in this moment? And it's sort of like, well, I'm kind of just playing mind tricks on myself and telling myself that, everything is going to be okay. And what I have is good and things are going to get better. There's a lot of books that deal with that exact situation. And there's a lot of true stories as well that reflect that sort of like, you go to a place in your head and you go to a place in your community where there is joy, because how else are you going to get by, kind of thing. I really like that part.
I related to that part a lot because I have Lyme disease, and when I had it really, really badly, that's where I had to go to a point where I wasn't getting better, and it was my life. It was just like that. I had no choice but to be either just get stuck in it, or to just, live this day, this moment, what I have, and to live with what I have the fullest.
Yeah, for sure. Those are the types of stories that kind of help you remember what it means to do in your real life. How can that reflect in your real life? So that's why I like these books so much. Does anyone else have a favorite part of the book they want to share, or do we want to move on? It's up to you. No? Okay.
I just liked the way that when she was talking about playing chess, and she, I'd never really thought about them as being elements, but she talks about the wind blowing in from the east or the south or whatever, and she talks about a little bit about chess, and I thought that was an interesting. I don't play chess. Does anybody play chess? Do you?
Thanks, Jess.
I used to be, I think, in the chess club when I was in middle school. So very nerdy.
I was in the chess club in elementary school. I think I have a trophy still.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think it's great that girls play chess, because generally it seemed like it's kind of male dominated.
Well, even in the book, this quote stuck with me. She brings up Bobby Fischer. Everyone maybe knows who Bobby Fischer is. He's considered the greatest chess player of all time. He was said, and I quote, "There will never be a woman grandmaster in the game of chess." And I couldn't believe. I was like, "Wait, what? He said that? That's
I know. I was a little offended with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, kind of probably lit a fire under Waverly's butt to be one of the best. And I really like that chapter too. It was interesting because at the beginning of the chapter, when Waverly is still like trying to figure out how to play chess, and she's, not super great at it, her mom is kind of humble about it. Her mom is like, "Oh, it is what it is. Whatever happens will happen. And that's fine." But then when she it's like, at the beginning, she's sort of humble. But then when Waverly starts to get really good, she's kind of like showboating her daughter around, when they're walking around the streets. And Waverly kind of tells her mom, "I need you to stop. This is embarrassing. I don't want you telling people about your daughter and how good she is at chess." And her mom just couldn't believe that she had said that to her. I thought that was really interesting, sort of the duality between, "Oh, it's luck. You'll be better next time. Don't worry about it," to all of a sudden showboating her daughter around and saying, "This is my daughter. She's a great chess player." And her daughter being like, "Stop." And it just being this whole rift between them. I thought that was a really interesting part. I mean, does anyone want to take a stab at why that happened? Why was Lindo one way and then another way when it came to her daughter's losses and successes with chess? Because that was a big question that I had. I couldn't really figure that out. Why did she kind of switch her tone on that?
I felt, and I don't have a reason for it, but I actually in my notes have like this, it's almost like a common theme. And I was like, it really made me feel like it was bringing out my like white centered views on things, because I was like, geez, these parents are so harsh on their kids. And like, it's so backwards, you know. I say backwards again, coming from a white centered, which is not great. And it says like on mine, it's page 53. It says about her mom. I don't even remember who it was. She acted stern, so I knew she was very sad. I assume, and then I said, I assume she's saying her family didn't really show true emotions, or maybe that Taiwanese families aren't like stereotypical happy families. It was more of that there was in a bunch of these stories, it was like my mom or my caregiver didn't want me to be taken. So they said I was like this, you know, they had nicknames, and it was something like, you know, I'm gonna make this up, but it was something like stinky child, so that like the spirits wouldn't take you or something.
Mhm.
And
Oh, yeah.
it was very much like, I kept going like, gosh, why didn't they just say, I love you, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're this? And that's coming from, I'm sure, a cultural, you know, like the time period that I've been raised, but also again, the white centeredness is like, you know, all these women turned out fine, but some of them were really second guessing themselves because of the way that their parents taught them. But then that was also a cultural thing. So it was like a beautiful thing. So Julia, I have no answer to you, but it was something that was like weighing on my mind. Like I found myself being very judgy and being like, where is that coming from?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and how, you know, but you could also see it in the daughters, you know, they're raised in the US, and they have that like American side of things that are like, gosh, my mom this, and the other side of like, I really want to know my cultural heritage, and like that's just how it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll let the floor open for everybody else.
Thank you, Heather. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's sort of the duality between wanting to distance yourself from the culture that made your parents, made your mom a little bit crazy maybe, but you know, it's the generational trauma. I think that is a huge theme in this book, is just you know, the traumas that get passed down from generation to generation. And maybe it doesn't necessarily get solved with moving to America and raising your daughters in America, because you're still going to be dealing with all of those stories and all of those traumas that happened prior to coming to a new country. But you know, I think at the heart of the story is just trying to reconnect with your daughters and your mothers. That's pretty much it. And they all have their own kind of interesting way of getting to that point, you know, whether it just be like amazing advice that your parents end up giving you, or it's a moment in time, it's an experience that you go through together, or you know, it's something that happens, unfortunately for June, after the fact, something she had to learn after her mother had died. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I think like generational trauma has a big part to play in this, in all of these stories. Okay, if you
Want to hear somebody with the Chinese cultural background, how they feel about, you know, the passing down of the trauma kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, if you guys ever get a chance, there is a documentary on Amy Tan that I highly recommend. It's on Netflix. I just watched it, I think last week, pretty much right after I finished the book. I thought I could find the Joy Luck Club on some platform. I couldn't. I don't know. I'm trying to see if I can find that movie somewhere. But there is a documentary on Netflix about Amy Tan's rise to fame through the Joy Luck Club, and then some of the other books that she wrote afterwards. And it's basically just a story of her life, and there's a lot of parallels between her life and her mother's life and what's in this book. So this book definitely comes from a place of nonfiction. like her parents did have a Joy Luck Club. They created the Joy Luck Club. Amy Tan had some crazy stuff happen to her. Sammy, she did actually also have Lyme's disease. She had Lyme's disease, and she was not diagnosed, I think, for several years, and it was sort of like trying to figure out what was going on with her body. And when they finally diagnosed her, she was able to recover and sort of continue on with her career. But you know, she had a suicidal mother, and she had her father died of I think brain cancer, and just like a litany of stuff that happened to her that just like, wow, can't believe that all of that happened to this one person. It's a really, really good documentary. I don't want to give too much away, but definitely once you're done reading this book, if you do finish it, watch that documentary. It's not too long. It's like maybe an hour and a half, but it definitely talks about her rise to fame when she published the Joy Luck Club, and then just sort of, you know, what happened to her life after that. So I really recommend it.
Can I say something about what Heather said? I too had this similar experience with what Heather said about that too. And I grew up half part of the time in India, and so I have stories that I think it's Asian in general that they tell you stories like that the little tales, like how this to take you through life. They'll tell you tales to take you that will like to show you morals, reasoning, to teach you lessons in life. And some are terrifying and some are very helpful. And I thought some of the stories were terrifying in the book, and I thought some were very hopeful and very comforting. Oh gosh, now I can't remember the girl's name.
Was it Anne May?
Anime, yeah. You know,
Yeah.
her mom tells her the stories, and through the traveling and afterwards, and where she sleeps with her mom, and you know, all these stories she tells her. I mean, that's so beautiful. That's just that she has that time with her.
Yeah, that was a crazy story too with May.
Yeah. And I thought it was really interesting how she was, Anna Mae's mom was the only person that didn't have a name. You know, she was a concubine, and I thought that was an interesting story. How, if you want to tease that out, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so that was May's story, correct?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think I found the part where I think it was her grandmother. She calls her Popo.
Yeah.
Yes, she said that her and her brother had fallen out of the bowels of a stupid goose. 2 eggs that nobody
Yeah.
wanted, not even good enough to crack over rice porridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that quote.
That's so harsh.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that you know, when Aunt May, was it Aunt May? Yeah, she was the one who had the soup spilled on her,
Yeah.
which we never find out who did that, I guess.
Yeah,
Is that
I
up to
didn't understand that
interpretation?
part.
Is that up to interpretation, or is that kind of like a you know, I was always when I was reading that section over and over and over again, be like, wait,
Yeah.
who did that? Was it an accident? Was it like maybe a supernatural occurrence?
I thought it had been her grandma. That's how I interpreted that. Kind of to do something to come between her and her mom because they were trying to like take her mom out of the house,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense if it was her grandmother.
Mhm.
But I was, yeah,
I-
I figured out.
Would you think that, I thought it was like an accident. It says, between us stood the soup pot on its heavy chimney pot stand, rocking slowly back and forth. And then with one shout, this dark boiling soup spilled forward and fell over my neck. I don't know, I guess in my mind, it was like, I imagined her like, near the stove, peering around the corner, listening to her family. And then they like yelled and she like kind of did one of these and it spilled on her.
Yeah,
But maybe I have that totally wrong. It didn't even occur to me somebody had done that till you just said it now.
yeah, it was like, I just wanted to know who was the perpetrator behind that, or was it just an accident and it was just the result of sort of a chaotic moment happening where An Mei's mother came back and was trying to get her back. And it was just sort of like an accident and an unfortunate situation. So,
Yeah, that's a really interesting interpretation. I just thought it was an accident. I didn't think about maybe that fact that it was someone else.
yeah, and then with one shout, this dark boiling soup spilled forward and fell all over my neck. I guess it's kind of up to interpretation. You don't really know exactly how it happened. And maybe that was intentional. So I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking an accident because I'm personally like a messy eater and spill stuff on me all the time or get spilled stuff. My husband and I were at dinner and he spilled red wine all over me the other day.
I think what you said, Heather, kind of makes sense to me. Like if someone's, there's an argument and they're shouting as like a kid or something, you might get startled and to spill it all over yourself.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Or if somebody's talking with their hands, like I know people, when they're angry, like somebody could have knocked over the pot. And as a kid, she wouldn't have put blame on anybody.
Mhm.
And just said it fell on me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
that was.
interesting.
And then, well, what's the continuation of An Mei's story? That is, Rose.
Is it Guys?
And
You mean like when she went with her mom back to the concubine house?
yeah, yeah, that was, where was that? There it is. I knew my mother because I could feel her pain. 126 or page 216.
Oh, yeah.
My mom is just gone. Where did my mother go? Mommy, where did you go?
I'm on the floor.
Oh. All right, good to know you're still here.
I can't sit, my back's bothering me.
Okay, well, you do what you gotta do. Yeah, the story, the concubine story, that was also, I mean, sort of, that was the norm. There were lots of concubines
Right.
and lots of men who had many suitors, and then just the sort of hierarchy. And if you watch the documentary, she does flesh into that a little bit, just like the hierarchy of a concubine and how these women can be so jealous of the other women, especially the newer ones that come in. They're younger, they're quote unquote fresher, and there can be some really serious animosity between these women.
I just hated that, like, and those of you who haven't gotten there yet, again, I'll try not to ruin anything, but I just hate how she, I don't want to say fell into that position, how she was tricked into that position. And that it wasn't, it wasn't her fault. She couldn't, I just hate that because of what happened still being vague. Like, I hate that she couldn't just be like, this happened to me. It wasn't my fault. I was tricked. It was seen as like, that's on you. You must have put yourself in this position. And yeah, the end of that chapter was really upsetting. But again, it ended in one of those like, you know, from this loss, I have gained my voice. You know, like people started to fear me because I could start to, I don't know if she said roar or something. I feel like she said she could roar now, her daughter.
Her daughter, now she
A
can say that.
scream or something like that. or-
Yeah. She said like people now, like they basically could fear her because of what happened to her mom. I'll leave it vague again.
No
And
worries.
I'm trying to find it.
Going back real quick to what Julia was saying about the concubines and competition, I think sometimes too there's competition between mothers and daughters, which is kind of twisted, right? But sometimes you want your children to be achieving a certain level of, you know, success, but at the same time, because you're their parent, you don't want them to necessarily be better than you. I think that might be a theme that maybe, I don't know if I've gotten to that chapter yet, but I think you mentioned the mom's attitude changes towards her daughter. Like she was encouraging her and then she was telling her to kind of pull it back a bit.
Mhm.
Sometimes, I mean, I think, I don't know what the mom situation was, but sometimes when you have a parent that's maybe having, you know, dealing with narcissism or things like that, it's hard because you're almost like having to compete with your parent. I mean, I don't know what that would be like, but actually I work at a counseling center. So sometimes we deal with certain situations that you do have parents that are, you know, dealing with narcissism, and you see how that affects not just like their spouse, but also their children and their parenting style. So not that that's the case here, but something I just thought of right now.
Yeah, totally. There's so many things that can be drawn in to this book. So many aspects of my life, of everyone else's life that they can see themselves in. They can see a reflection of themselves in these characters, even though they come from a totally different cultural background. There's still those pressures, and there's still the stories that you hear that are scary, that are meant to, you know, straighten you out, put you in line, and make you behave and things like that. I totally agree. That was kind of the big takeaway for me, is just that you see yourself and you see your friends and your family in the chapters of this book. Maybe not necessarily exactly the same, but the parallels are there. And it's interesting how like the common human experience can transcend different races and different cultures. And even amongst that, you know, one of my favorite scenes was when the boyfriend has dinner with the parents, and he just says, oh, you know, if it's not that good, you just put a little soy sauce on it.
And it was offensive, yeah.
But it was super offensive, even though in his mind he was like, I'm being like the really sort of charming guy, right? Did anyone else? I had secondhand embarrassment so bad from that particular chapter. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I love how he was like, oh, that dinner actually went pretty well. And she was like, oh my God, no. Kids, like, thank you.
He was like, that was great. I think they loved me. And she was like, I don't know. We'll see how it ends up. Yeah, that was really funny. Yeah, like cultures are so different. Like what's lucky and what's polite in one culture is completely the opposite in another culture. And it's hard to know where to draw the line when you are crossing cultures. You don't know, you know, like, does a thumbs up mean thumbs up, or does it mean like stick it up your bum or something like that? You know, like those really kind of
Yeah.
things that you don't think about. I mean, you know, for me, I work in an industry where I'm exposed to so many different cultures every single day. And I've like, oh gosh, I don't want to say something that's gonna be offensive, or I don't want to give an offensive gesture when I meant to just do, you know, an okay symbol or whatever it is, you know, you just have to be cognizant of that. But when I read that that section, I thought that was really funny. It was like, oh my
Or like at that dinner, you don't want to pick the wrong crab.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you don't want to pick the wrong crab, but in that way, I mean, she picked the 11th crab. The daughter picked the 11th crab. She picked the like bad crab, and her mom was like, "Wow, I'm so proud of you because you kind of just you chose the bad crab because you wanted everyone else to have the good crab, and that's how I
Right.
know that I raised a good daughter."
Just going back for 1 second. I liked the anime story. How she transforms the mother, transforms herself to modernize herself, not just to modernize herself, the fact that she what's the word I'm trying to use? Sorry, my Lyme disease, it kind of gets in the way of words. Because she was because her husband died, and she was in mourning, so she couldn't be in. She could only wear white for the rest of her life if she were to be on her own. But for the bad things that happened to her, she took charge for I don't want to say it out, to give it away what happened. She just really transforms herself and becomes something new and something more to start new life.
Mhm.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, you're talking about Anmei, right?
Yeah, Anime's mom and then Anime too.
Was Anmei was she was the one, yeah, when she had the soup spilled down her neck, her mom or her popo said, basically, if you die, we're not gonna mourn you because you're under a certain age. I looked into that. That is a real thing that happens in the Chinese culture. It's called Yili. It's a Chinese death ritual called Yili. It's the length of mourning, and it depends on the age of a child. If the child is under 8 years old, there is no official mourning period. And Anmei was 4 when that happened to her. And her popo said, if you die, we will not mourn you. So you better live. That shocked me. I actually looked it up. I was like, is this a real thing? Yeah, it's called Yili. And each age group has a different mourning period associated with it. And if the child is under 8, they don't have any mourning period from their entire family. And that I was like, what? That's crazy. It's a crazy.
She thinks of her mom, right?
What's that?
She thinks of her mom, right?
I think she does, yeah. And then her mom actually comes back when Popo is dying and takes care of her. And you know that her mom is a really good mom. There's Popo has kind of tainted
Stigmatized her.
Stigmatized her, tainted her daughter's or her grandchild's own vision of her mother, because she brought dishonor and disobedience to the family. And we hear that often. We heard that in Mulan. That was a big thing in Mulan.
That's what I just thought of, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing in Mulan. And then if you guys have read Crazy Rich Asians also, that is a huge theme in that book, is bringing honor to the family. And dishonor is, is like the worst possible thing you could do to your family. So yeah, again, these sort of like big umbrella themes where, it all comes down to these cultural realities for all these people. It is currently 9:43. Apparently, I only have 2 minutes left. I don't know how this is gonna work.
Wow.
If we go over, is it just gonna like cut it down? Is it just gonna go black? Does anyone
It
know?
has in the past. It'll cut it off, and then you could technically restart a new
Oh my
session if you
another-
wanted.
Wow, that's crazy. I can't believe it's been an hour and a half. What?
Wow.
That's crazy. I have so much more I want to say. And I'm sure you guys do too. But if we get cut off, we get cut off. And it's, it's time for bed for me.
What's the most important thing that you want to say? Maybe you should.
I loved Amy Tan's writing. I loved how she told this story, how she organized it like a mahjong game. I love that it was just a bunch of little stories. I don't know. Anyone else? That's all I'm going to say.
Did you say she organized it like a mahjong game?
Yes, she did.
Oh. Tell us
Missed
about that.
Well,
Elaborate.
yeah, because I think there's 16 rounds in a mahjong game. I'm not sure, but
Oh,
there's north, south, east, west. So there's 4 right there, and then she repeats that 4 more times. So that's what I think. She sets it up like a mahjong game.
Oh, maybe we should all try to learn a little bit of mahjong.
Apparently, it's really, really, really complicated. I don't know. Maybe not.
I loved in the beginning it talked about a Jewish version, and I was like, my grandmother tried to teach me just before she passed, and I was like, I should have been in on that.
Yeah.
My grandma does play mahjong now.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a thing like in retirement communities and stuff. She has like a weekly group and they meet together. So I guess
Nice.
Yeah.
can't be that complicated that like all the people in her community know how to play.
Right.
Somehow learn.
my
I'm
husband's
looking
great
into it.
aunt, she's actually Jewish and she plays mahjong. So I thought that was really funny when they talked about the differences between Jewish mahjong and Chinese mahjong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any like big broad things? Amy Tan wrote this book, so I want to, shout out to her, not necessarily the stories that she wrote, but like just how she wrote it. Maybe we can focus a little bit on that. Like what were some takeaways that you experienced from reading in her author voice?
I like the back and forth of like the going to the past, then coming back to the present. It's almost like you're watching a movie, right? And they have flashbacks. So those flashbacks in the book were very enjoyable to read.
And it is a movie, so if you can find
Oh
it,
yeah.
definitely let me know, because I'm trying to find it. I have not found it. I don't see it on any platforms anywhere.
I just looked it up did you try Amazon Prime?
Yes, that's not usually my first choice to look for stuff, but I do have a gift card actually. So I can use that. Yeah. So yeah, Amazon, usually try to see like if a neighbor has it or if the thrift store has it, but then if you go to the thrift store, you have to like go through every single.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
I
library
know my,
might also have it.
yeah, I was gonna say, I just saw my library has like tons of DVDs.
Yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting about the library. Oh my God. I should know.
DVD player. You got to find a DVD player.
Well, I know.
I
have
don't
one.
have a DVD player.
Yeah, I do have a DVD player, so I have that going for me. I know, right? Crazy. Who has a DVD player anymore? Anyone else want to say anything about Amy Tan's writing or any like styles that you liked, didn't like, you know, we can talk about things we didn't like too. That's cool.
I liked the way that she could be very descriptive or, and then she would just say something very short and simple.
Mhm.
And that would be it. And a lot of that was just her maybe talking about something that she had learned from her mother or grandmother. And they would give them some direction that was, I mean, they weren't culturally, you know, it doesn't sound like they were like really loving, like, you know, sit in your lap kind of loving, but they had a lot of teaching from one generation to the next. And she would be, her writing could just be very short but powerful,
Mhm.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, she's written a ton of books. I had no idea. She's written a lot of books. So if I see another Amy Tan book, I will definitely pick it up.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely a very like easy read, not like in a bad way, but sometimes I'll read books and I have to keep Googling words or look up sayings, right, that they're using. But it's very very enjoyable and easy to get through.
Yeah, I would agree. And I like what you said, Mom. It just, yeah, she would say stuff and it would be related to the culture, the Chinese culture. She would say something, it wouldn't necessarily make sense to someone who is not Chinese, but then you understand, oh, she's saying this because it relates to her Chinese culture. And that's how it makes sense to her. And then you would understand, okay, now it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
And also my grandmother was Polish, which is, I mean, Eastern European and Chinese. Even though they're kind of more geographically close, they're very far away in their cultures. I don't know, the Chinese are fascinating, but I would find that there were a lot of superstitions that crossed over. My grandmother had a lot of superstitions about bad luck, you know, like don't think about things that are bad because then they're gonna get into your system and then you're gonna have bad luck.
Mhm.
And the same thing in this book, you know, about a lot of superstitions about bad luck.
Did she teach you about not going through a different door, entering and leaving through a different door? Was that her superstition that she passed on to you?
That one I don't recall. I learned about that one later on.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe
Yeah.
that was something that,
Yeah, I learned about that one later on. I don't know where that superstition comes from. Does anybody know?
Mom doesn't like to enter and exit through a different door in somebody else's house.
Oh, my dad talks about that. But it was like a new thing he decided like in the last 5 years, all of a sudden. And so now we'll joke with them because we'll like, you know, go out and sit on the patio and then like leave from there. And then he'll joke like, oh no, we're supposed to go out the front door because that's how we came in.
Yeah. I went I was at a restaurant over the weekend and we came in through one door and we were going to leave through another. And my friend said, oh no, we can't do that. We have to go back. And we told the waitress we were going to do this and she thought we were crazy. But, you know, we ended up having to go all the way back around the restaurant, around the bar and everything to leave through the same door that we had. So, I mean, she knew about this custom also. I don't know.
The
Yeah.
first time I heard of it.
Has anybody heard of it before other than Sarah? Or
Yeah,
No.
it's through Mom. She's definitely said that.
Oh, huh.
That's a strange
it's out there.
No worries in my apartment. I only have one door.
Yeah, and then also feng shui is a big thing in this book too, which she never mentions by name. She never calls feng shui by its name. Maybe feng shui doesn't really have a name for them at that time, but feng shui has a huge part to play, especially with the woman who can Ying Yang St. Clair,
Ying.
right? Yeah. We haven't really talked about Ying Yang too much, actually.
Yeah.
But she, you know, she and I realized that she probably married this guy whose last name is St. Clair because of his name. St. Clair,
Right.
clairvoyant. I figured, okay, she's clairvoyant. She marries somebody whose last name is St. Clair. And she is able to predict things before it happens. And she, you know, she's always saying like, oh, you can't put that there. That's bad luck. It's bad energy. You need to make sure that it's over here. And you know, when I've been decorating my house, I definitely I consult feng shui first. I'm always like, what does feng shui say? You know, where should I put this mirror? Where does feng shui say I can put this mirror?
Mhm.
And then I kind of follow along with it. And so when I was reading Yin Yang's story, I was like, wait a second, she's basically talking about feng shui and how that can, like, you can predict things that are happening. You can say, you know, oh, you can't put that there. That's bad energy. You can't do that.
Or the one character who was getting a divorce, and the husband who was upkeeping the garden when they were getting a divorce, the garden was dying and all the plants were dying, and that was like symbolic of the state of what they were going through.
Yeah, for sure. And didn't her mom say that? Didn't her mom say, oh, your garden is dying?
Mhm.
Right.
Lena St. Clair. Lena is her daughter. Yeah, she predicted it. She basically predicted that your marriage is not going to last with this man. Just by like being clairvoyant and seeing how those things was going to come together, and totally fell apart like she said it would. Yeah.
This is unrelated, but I was trying to remember if I had, I think, Julia, I think I told you this. I was like, I think I read this in college. I didn't. I was looking up. I read an essay by Amy Tan called Mother Tongue, and it was about the challenges. It says to show how challenging it can be if an individual is raised by a parent who speaks limited English. And like the judgment that happens through that. And I like, that would have been 2003 that I read that, like my freshman year of college. And that stuck with me. Like Amy Tan, when I heard that name, I was like, so if anybody is interested, it's a short essay, I think, worth reading as well.
Yeah, the barriers that are associated with language and translation and all of that, you know, the term lost in translation is very prevalent in this book. Just language, culture, superstitions, all of those things, they sort of get lost and then they kind of come back again. So yeah. Okay, it's 9:56. I can't believe they're letting us go this long. That's great. Whoever they are, I don't know. The powers that be, but I feel like we should wrap this up. It's 10 o'clock our time or 10 o'clock my time, 10 o'clock for some other people's time too. And is anyone have any like final thoughts that they want to share or things looking forward to for next month? We've got 3 minutes, so.
I just want to quickly say, when I picked up this book, everyone that like had read it said it's like the book about mahjong, but I thought it was interesting how little mahjong was, like there was. Like,
yeah, really, there really wasn't that much mahjong at all. It was like the very first page, and then that's it.
Yeah, I kept like waiting, like, and I got to the end, I was like expecting more mahjong because everyone just had like drilled into my mind this was like the mahjong book, but I guess it's more about that.
Yeah, then I didn't read it.
My brother told me he read it in high school and he said, oh, that's super boring. But I was like, I had at this point only read like the first chapter and I loved it. So I told him, you wouldn't get it because it's about mothers and daughters. So
Yeah,
that's why you think it's boring.
You wouldn't get it, bro.
Yeah.
About it.
It's not for you.
It was a good choice. It was a good choice.
Yeah. Loved it.
Yeah, I really, really liked it. I'm gonna hang on to this book and I'm gonna keep the annotations in here and refer back to them, especially if I read another Chinese culturally centric book. I think this is sort of probably I don't know, what would you call this? Like the Keystone Species, maybe, kind of book that everything else is sort of based off of. Because Kevin Kwan, who wrote Crazy Rich Asians and the Crazy Rich Asians series, he said that this book like really catapulted him into wanting to become a writer. So, you know, a lot of writers, a lot of Chinese and Asian writers owe their sort of inspiration to Amy Tan and the Joy Luck Club. So, you know, obviously has a big cultural relevance to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the next book.
Yeah, go for it.
So I had a hard time getting through Jane Eyre, and I heard it was like Jane Eyre. Like, how do you suggest going through that book?
I have no idea. I have not read it yet. You saying it sounds like Jane Eyre, or is it like
That's what one of the writers said.
Oh. I don't know. I don't really know what to expect with this book. I've heard like good and bad things about it. I don't know. I'm kind of hoping it's a good book. I don't know if it's going to be a good book, and I'm hoping that it's going to be sort of like this book where there is a lot of like cultural referencing and a lot of opportunities to flesh out bigger themes like that, or it can just be like a fun sort of lighthearted book. I don't know. Yeah. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you don't, I mean, you know, it is what it is. I don't even know if I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm reading a book right now and I do not like it at all. I really but I'm gonna read it.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any last concluding thoughts?
Have you considered being a teacher?
Me?
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah, well, Sarah's like, don't do it. Yeah, I've seen your post recently, Sarah. You seem a little disenfranchised, as you should be. God, it's not great.
Be a teacher, but not in the US.
Exactly.
More fun over here.
That's so sad.
That part right there, yeah.
Disturbing.
I think this is fine. I don't need to be a teacher. I'll just be a book club person.
Well, I think the first one went well.
Great.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, great first book club book.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys enjoy the Mexican Gothic. I have no idea what to expect. I picked it out a while ago and I've just sort of held on to it, kind of being like, I do want to read it in October. And then I just kind of realized, you know what? I think this would be a good book for the book club. The book club.
I'm just excited because I am Mexican American, so I've never read of it. I mean, I've never heard of it, so I'm excited to read it.
Okay, great.
Nice.
Great. And I might have November's book too. I don't know yet, but I'm not gonna say anything right now. Okay, well, it is 10:01. Let's call it a night/day for some of you. Thank you so much for coming to this first one. This is this makes me so happy. Really, really makes me happy. And to see so many of you from different aspects of my life, it's really awesome. I love it. And
Thanks
hopefully
for putting it together.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah,
for
thank
organizing, Julia.
Thank you.
you're
Yeah.
welcome. My pleasure. Hopefully you guys can make the next one. I don't know when it's going to be yet, but like I've been doing, I'll send you guys an email, and if you can't make it, that's cool. It's totally fine. All right. Bye guys. Have a good night.
Good night, guys. Bye.
Bye.
And
Bye,
I'll let you
everyone.
guys know how I did this whole recording thing, because I don't know. I might upload it to my YouTube channel. I don't have it. I have a YouTube channel. I don't have anything uploaded onto it, so I might just do it that way. That way you guys can access it. Other people who weren't here can access it, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Hmm.
That's good.